Hey guys, in this video we're going to learn how to make Poppy from trolls. So I've got a print out of Poppy here. It's just as big as what could fit on the A4 sheet of paper, and we're just going to cut around Poppy's head. We're going to pop these cakes onto a board. Now the board that I've got is a 14-inch board. We're just going to trim. I actually forgot these cakes were in the oven, so it's a good job that it was just for my kids. So I've done a pink sponge. I've coloured the buttercream sort of like a greeny colour to match her dress. And these are 8-inch cakes that I've got. So I've got two, and I've trimmed sort of the top layer kind of in half because I didn't want it to come too far off the board. But it's up to you as like how you want it. I just thought that's what would look best. I do apologise for the noise in the background. Obviously, we're on lockdown at the minute, so I've got the kids at home. So I've cut out the eyes, and we're just going to use that as a template to cut the eyes out in the sponge. Now, it doesn't need to be too deep, but just so you've got sort of like a rough idea of to where they should be, just for later on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sort of level off a little bit at the cheeks on either side. So the carving on this cake is quite basic. We don't need to do much. We're just going to level just a little bit down on the cheeks. And this is just so that when we cover it in fondant, the cheeks are not flat to the face, and it's sort of like a 3D shape rather than a 2D shape. And then the only other place that we're going to sort of carve into is where Poppy's headband would be. And that's just again so that there's a difference in shape. You can sort of see her head taper off. And you're also going to just curve the edges off as well, because when you put the fondant on, we kind of want it to be a round face, not sort of like a flat shape. We're not carving in too deep. It's literally, I would say, sort of like millimeters that you're sort of carving in around the cheeks and the bit on the forehead. So you can see it just really is just the very top of the cake, just so that you could see the sort of different areas that you're going to be working on. So once you've done this, do not throw the cake mix away, because we're going to use that later on to create some of the hair. And you can see that I'm just neatening off. Obviously, if this was for a customer, I would have rebaked it, but it's just for my kids, so they'll eat it, it'll be fine. So you just want to try and make sure that you've got it as level as you can, the bits that you've carved in, because any mistakes at this point will show up when you put the ganache and the fondant over. So I've cut the mouth out, and I'm just going to take that out for cake. Now, if I was doing this again, I wouldn't cut the mouth as deep as what I did do. I literally would have either pressed it into the fondant or just not cut it as deep as what I did, because it did take a little bit of filling, and I'll show you that later on in the video. So I've got some ganache. If you wonder why it's a bit of a weird colour, I had a drip cake that was pink, and so I did a pink ganache. I didn't have enough left over to cover this, so I quickly just threw some more together, some white chocolate, and so the pink mixed with the white made a peachy kind of coloured ganache. But again, it's just for home, so the kids won't notice. So it's just a really thin layer of ganache at this point. The reason I didn't do a thicker layer is I'm going to be pressing quite a bit into the fondant, and I want some movement there, but I want something a bit firmer than buttercream. So the offcuts of the cake that I had, I've just mixed them together with the leftover ganache, and I'm just going to build this up on the board, and this is going to be Poppy's hair. So you kind of want to build a sort of rounded triangle shape, and it needs to sort of like slope down from the head. So you can't really see it from this angle because I'm building it up, but it does sort of slow down slope down. And the top bit wants to be a little bit flat because that's the bit that the hair is going to come out of. Now you could wait for it to firm up a little bit if you needed to carve anything off it. I could have done with it not being in the sunlight because it didn't set very much. Once it's dry, I've got some pink fondant and we're just going to rub this on. Now it does look a little bit lumpy, but the majority of the face is going to be covered, and once you've smoothed it out and added in all the features, you really can't see that much. So try not to focus too much on getting it really smooth because it just doesn't need it. So using your template, we're just going to put in the eyes and the mouth again. So you can see a little bit more now the fondant's on. It does go quite deep. It doesn't need to be as deep as the eyes. Now I didn't realise the eyes didn't record on this video, but thankfully the other part of the eyes, the bit I think probably most people struggle with, recorded. So literally I just got 2 bits of white fondant and rolled them into circles and popped them in the eye socket, and then I got 2 smaller bits of pink and popped those on the top, and I've got some pink dust that I've just done on the cheeks and on the eyelids as well. For the colour, I've got the Sugar Flare Magenta, and I've just painted the outside of the eyes with that, quite a thin line, and then you're just going to wet your brush and bring all of that colour into the middle. So you can see I'm just pulling it all in. Now because the fondant is pink and the magenta is a bit of a darker colour, it gives quite a nice colour to the eye. And you're going to do exactly the same with the other one, so just pulling that down and just neatening up the edges if you needed to. So next we're going to do the nose. So just using the picture as a template, we've got a little bit of a fat sausage, and we're going to put in some sort of like nostril bits. So you kind of want to mark in where the nose goes up, and then just use the pointy bit of the Dresden tool to pull that up. So you're just going to thin it out at the edges, and then I've just got a ball tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the ball tool in where the nostrils would go, and that'll give you the shape that she's got for her nose. It's a bit of a weird shape to try and describe, and we're just going to pop it on. Now at this point it did look weird, I'm not going to lie, and I nearly did stop recording because I just thought I had it so wrong. But just I think that they all go through a stage where it just looks a bit weird. But if you just keep on with it, you will see the result in the end. So just some eyebrows now. So sausages that are pointy either side. And we're just going to place those on with a little bit of water. Now the eyebrow on the right, technically you don't actually need that one because the fringe covers that anyway. So again, for the eyes, 2 small black dots, so just a little bit smaller than the pink ones that are on there. You shouldn't need to stick it down with any water because it should still be tacky from where you've painted it. And just pushing them down into place, and then some smaller white blobs. Now these need to go the same side on each eye, so if you put it on the right side on one eye, it needs to go to the right side on the other. And then I've just got some white Sugar Flare, and I'm just going to pop in some little freckles because she's got little white freckles all over her face. You could save this for later. I touched the cake and ended up having to redo some anyway. So next we're going to do her eyelashes. So a little bit of a sausage that's pointy at one side. And now these don't go all the way down, so you're just going to cut the excess off at an angle, and then you're going to push that down into the eye. And you're going to do the same for the other side, and then we're going to create some eyelashes as well. So just pushing it into place, tiny little bit of water will stick this down. Now obviously if you wanted to do her with her mouth closed, or a different facial expression. Obviously, when you print off the sheet, you would just work with whatever it was that was on there. So if the mouth was closed, you would just mark in a line for the mouth. So for the eyelashes, she's got sort of like little triangles. And so if you just cut some little triangles out of the black fondant and then just pushing them into place, she's got 3 on each eye. Just using my Dresden tool to shape it and flatten it where it needed to be. They're quite rounded eyelashes that she's got. They're not too pointy or too thin, they're quite chunky. And you're going to do the same for the other eye. So next we're going to mark in the mouth. So I need to make it a little bit bigger. And then we're just going to pull the Dresden tool down. So if I was doing this again, this is what I would do. So where I'm marking it now, I would just mark that in the fondant. I wouldn't bother cutting out the hole for the mouth, because when you try to fill it, it takes quite a lot of fondant to fill, but I wasn't thinking about that when I was doing it. So if you do the same way that I did, then just a little bit of, well, quite a lot of chunk of black fondant, and you're just going to use your Dresden tool to put it in place. If you was to do it where you was just cutting it out, then you would roll out your black fondant and use the cutout that you've got as a guide and cut that out and then stick it on. So you can see here that my black didn't reach the bottom, so I've had to add another strip in there at the bottom and just push it into place. Now I've marked out where the tongue is, so she's got a tongue. It's quite dark, so I'm not too sure how much you'd be able to see of this, but I just took some of the black and I mixed it with the pink from Poppy. So just tidying up the edges. If you go over, you can just use your scalpel to neaten that off. But I'd used my scalpel to cut out the area for the tongue and took the black away. I didn't want to sort of like start layering up in the mouth. I wanted it to kind of be flush. So you're just going to pull that away, and then we're going to fill that with the sort of like the maroon type colour that we've made from the pink and the black mixed together. And it's just a case of popping it in and then pushing it into the shape that we want. So as you can see from the video, I pushed it into place and I ended up adding just a little bit more just to give it the shape that I wanted. You're looking for it to be smooth and to fit in that gap, so the bottom bit needs to be a complete circle. The good thing is with the fondant is that it's still quite soft, so you can just sort of blend it together. So just pushing it into place and marking in the line in the tongue. So remember that one side's a bit bigger than the other. And not a lot of this is going to be visible because we've got to put our teeth in anyway. So with the teeth, I've cut out the bottom row and just rolled out some white fondant. And I'm just really marking in the top set, the top line. The bottom line you can amend when it goes into the mouth, but the top set, the top line of the teeth even, you kind of want that to be as near as you can get it. And you're going to push that in place on the bottom. So again, I've not used any water to stick this down. And you're just going to mark in the lines for the teeth that separate them a little bit and push it in with your Dresden. So you don't want the teeth that thick that they overlap the pink. So they kind of want to be set in to the mouth a little bit, as you know anybody's teeth would be. So you need to make sure that once you've put the black in, the black's far enough down that when you put the white in, the white doesn't overlap the pink. So just pulling that down and smoothing out, you could see there that the cake's still quite soft. And then we're going to do the same for the top teeth. Now the top teeth has got a gap in the middle, so I did the right hand side first and then I went ahead and did the left hand side. So using the template that you've got to find the place that it needs to go, and making sure that you push the white up as far as it can go so that there is no gap between the skin and the teeth. You don't really want to be seeing the black through the gap. Just trying to get it as close as you can to how it is in the picture. So we're going to do the same for the middle one. So I think she's got 5 teeth, I think, on the top row. Quite 2 big chunky ones at the front, and then 2 smaller ones as it's getting towards the back. Now again, like I said before, if you was going to do this with the mouth closed, this is a whole section that you wouldn't need to do. So once you're happy with the position of the teeth, we're going to move on to the ears. Now I didn't realise that I wasn't in shot for this part, but the ears are a fairly simple shape, kind of like a bit of a fat triangle, and it's just 2 big blobs of fondant. I've used my hands just to flatten out the edges, and we're going to do 1 for each side. Now again, I've not put too much detail on these because they're going to be covered by hair anyway. But you want 1 for either side of the ear. So some darker pink now. So I've just taken the light pink and added a bit more fuchsia. I was working on this late at night. That's why it looks a bit of a weird colour right now, because it's the lights that I've got in my cake room. So we're just going to cover the top of the head in the darker pink and just mark it with your Dresden tool. Bring in the lines sort of into the centre of the head. Again, it doesn't need to be too neat because this bit is not a bit that a lot of people will be seeing. And then I've got some purple. I've coloured it magenta and a dark purple, so you can see it's got like a bit of a marble to it. And I'm just using my fingers to leave a little bit of a pattern on the fondant. So on the picture that I got of Poppy, it's got a bit of a glittery background that's in purple, and so I've just tried to create that kind of effect with it. So you can see that I've not mixed the colours in properly, and that was on purpose to give it sort of like a bit of a marbled effect. And because we're sort of using our fingers to press it in, you just need to smooth over the join with a smoother and then imprint your fingers all the way around the board. So stick the ears on just with a little bit of water. Try to get the positioning the same. And then we're going to do the hair. So chunks of fondant now, a little bit pointy at one side, and this is going to be where it tapers down over the sort of sides of the face. You can see I'm just popping it on and pointing out the edge a little bit more. Just a little bit of water to stick it on and trimming off the excess at the top. Now I've sped this up quite a bit because it's fairly easy to kind of like put on the hair. It's just all about positioning it in the right place. You want to cover up the ears a little bit because that's a join onto the cake that you don't really want to see, and it's just about layering it up. So you want to make sure that the join at the top of the head is quite neat and straight for when we add her, I don't know whether it's a crown or a tiara or whatever, but when we add that later on, you want the join to be quite straight. So just going over the lines that you've smoothed over. Now for this side, I did quite a big chunk and then I chopped it into 2, just so I could do different placements of it. So you can see that's the kind of look we're going for, but I've done it in 2 strips, chopping off at the top. And you can see I've took the other eyebrow off because it wasn't needed. and feathering towards the edge of what you're doing so that you've got some sort of like loose bits of hair, curling it at the top and pushing that area down, making sure that all aspects of the cake are covered. You don't want to see her skin underneath here. And then just a few extra loose strands just to give it a little bit more movement that, you know, makes the hair just look a little bit more natural. So once you've done this as much as you feel you need to, could spend all day messing about with hair, we're going to do her ponytail that comes out of the top. Now, it's sort of like a bit of a, I guess, like a fountain of hair. And so I've just got chunks of fondant, I'm cutting it with the scissors, and then I'm just twisting those bits to give it a pointy edge, and then I'm just going to, you know, pop it on and build up layers and layers of hair. Another strip to go around. Again, chopping it in with your scissors and pointing the edge of the hair. It doesn't need to be too big, this. If you actually look at the pictures of it, when she's got it in the bobble, there isn't a lot of hair at the top. It's just more of a bit of a, I guess, like a bit of a fountain effect that she's got, but it does look quite thin. And so we're just going to add some individual strands, and I've just put a line through it to make it look like there's more than one. And just pushing it into position until you're happy with it. Again, you could spend forever adding little bits of hair in. So next, once you've got to this point, we're going to work on the crown. So I've just stuck a bit of a neck on there. So with the crown, we're going to do the bobble is the same colour. So it's just a bit of a fat sausage, and we're just wrapping it around that hair we put on yesterday. And then I've just rolled out some fondant and rolled it out, sort of like rolled a sausage, pointy at either side. And I've left it quite thick because you want it to kind of try to hold itself up a bit. Now you could cut around the template that you've got. I just freestyled it really. And so you want in one sort of bubble in the middle and then two either side, and then it sort of strips off to wrap around. So where you've cut, we're just going to smooth over the edges so it's more rounded, and then chop off any excess at the bottom. So it will be too long, this, but you're just going to stick it down with a little bit of water and trim off the join to the side because we want to make it look like it's wrapped around her head. So we're just going to stick some little bits underneath, you can see there, underneath the bits that come out. This is just to give it a sort of 3D effect, like it's standing up on its own effect. They're not big blobs of fondant, but it is just a little bit just to give it that look that it's coming up. So next we're going to take some light blue, and I've just rolled 3 balls the same. We're going to teardrop it, so you can see I've made it into a bit of a teardrop shape. So on one side of the crown she's got 3, on the other side of the crown she's got 4, and these are going to form the petals that are part of her crown. So you want them all to be roughly the same size. So you can see I'm just pointing them out, and then there's some little leaves in there that are the same colour as the crown. So 3 smaller balls, and they've got 3 leaves on each side for this one, so you need to do 6 of these in total. We're going to teardrop these and then mark it with the Dresden tool. So you can see I'm just using the pointy side and putting a line in, and that's going to form the leaf. And you're going to do this for the other side as well, the 3 ones. And then we're just going to use our fingers to flatten it and they're going to make our petals. It's going to have that kind of formation on the crown. And then this side we're doing the 4 petals. Same thing with the leaves. So for the top of the crown, just a little bit of water. I'm going to put the leaves on first, pointy sides coming out. And then in between those, that's where we're going to add the petals. So this is the opposite way around, and it's the pointy sides meeting in the middle. Some lime coloured fondant for the bud of the flower. And for the other side, same thing again. So the leaves, the pointy sides on the way out. And for the petals, the pointy sides on the way in. So try to get it as close to what she actually has it on the picture. And again, the centre is lime green. Then she looks to have some kind of stitching for the crown as well. So we're rolling out a thin piece. Now for this one, I've just mixed some of the lime green with some of the darker green from the crown. And we're just going to cut these up into tiny little bits. You want 8 for each bud that we just put on. And you're going to point one side of it. When you've pointed one side of it, you will need to cut it down again because it will make it slightly longer. So just try to get them roughly the same size. A little bit of water, and again you want the point going out for this one. So we're going to create a cross first, similar I guess to the way you would cut a pizza. So up and across first, and then filling in those gaps. Using the Dresden tool to push it into place if need be. And then we're going to do the same for the other side. And then we're going to make the flower for the middle. So this one's got 7 petals, same as before, so 7 individual balls. And then we're going to teardrop those. So once you've teardropped them, we're going to press them flat with our fingers again. And this flower's different because it's the pointy bit that goes out and the rounded bit that goes to the centre. And we're going to mark these with the Dresden tool, similar to how we did the leaves earlier on. So mark all of those in. Now it was a bit tricky to get these to fit in. 6 fitted better, but there's actually 7 on the crown. So just push them all into place, and the dark blue centre for this one. I've got a firm brush and I'm just going to stipple that to add some texture. And then I've got some of my blue fondant and I'm just going to make the straps for Poppy's dress. So we're just pushing that into place. Doesn't really matter about the shape of these because you're going to push it into place anyway. A little knob for a button. And so what I've got now is I've got some dust and I've mixed that with some vodka, and I'm just brushing that on. Now you can see where the dust is clumping into the fingerprints that I put in earlier on, and it's giving it sort of like a really nice texture and a really nice different coloured. It's a bit mermaidy. You could really use it for a mermaid cake as well. And I've got some non-edible glitter, so you don't want to put it too near the cake. And I've just sprinkled that over, so you can see that there in the light. It's quite shimmery. Here's what you should have. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to see more of my videos, please click the links on the screen now. Thanks for watching.